Hi, my name is Alyssa Threadgill. I'm a writer for the Nocturnal. How are you both today?
Hi.
Good. How are you? You have some Pretty Little Liars lighting going on. Oh, yeah.
And some glowing
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Really appreciate it. My first question is actually for both of you. I really appreciated how this season brings about conversations surrounding mental health. And also, I really think it's interesting how Imogen worries that going on medication could make her end up like her mother, which is a really interesting parallel to draw from last season. What did it mean to you to kind of bring about these conversations and bring awareness? Because a lot of people feel this way about medicating for their mental health. And why do you think that's so important?
For both.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think there's there's so many blessings about getting to be a part of a show like this. I think so much credit to Roberto and Lindsay, who are so effortlessly able to create a show that's really fun to watch, obviously, and scares you in all the right ways. But at its core, I think from the moment that they started creating this show, they wanted to tell true stories. They wanted to represent real people, and they work so tirelessly to make sure that the show is constantly grounded in truth. And so again, with this season, I was so fulfilled as an actor to be given the chance to tell that story, to be able to tell stories that might spark a conversation between people or family members, might allow someone to feel seen. I completely understand the level of not, wanting to possibly put something in your body, or is that going to make something worse, or is that going to fix me? Am I going to feel numb from it? I think Imogen in herself is so unsure about next steps and so unsure on how she's going to become this new version of herself again. And she had the most horrific loss and example from her mom in that capacity. And I do think it speaks volumes that she's willing to ask the questions, though, in order to survive and to live. And I think that comes with seeking help, which our show is always like, if you are struggling, or if you are alone, or if you have questions, there are people that you can turn to. And so really refreshing to see a take on it, not just pill bottles on a nightstand, but someone's actual inner dialogue about taking it. Was really, and it was done in such an effortless way, but it's still out there for people, which is really kind.
Yeah, I agree. There's a light touch to the way that the conversation about mental health and therapy. And I think this show being a platform that so many young people can watch and say, hey, I can get help. I can talk to someone. I can, there's not a shame factor in it. It's really uniting.
Yes, absolutely. And Annabeth, I loved seeing you back this season. It was so cool seeing you reprising your role,
so cool,
being in this new world. What was that experience like for you, kind of getting to be the go-to therapist again and being able to relate to these girls and their problems?
Oh, it was such an honor and really fun. I jumped at the chance when the opportunity came. I thought, first of all, amazing, because I loved my experience on the first original Pretty Little Liars, and I had seen Original Sin. So I was just absolutely, yes, full stop, down for all of it. And always a little bit nervous to enter into a new arena. They'd already got their kind of momentum and togetherness. So to come in and sit in a new chair in a new office it's always a little nervous making.
5 girls staring at you.
Yes.
Also, Annabeth is I have to say, because I don't think I bet you haven't given yourself this credit yet today on this press junket, but Annabeth would fly into upstate New York and get in super late and then arrive super, super early. And she'd be handed, 15 pages of monologues to basically say over and over and over again, while we're doing coverage for 5 girls and wides and close-ups and specials. And I feel like the season was so enriched thanks to Annabeth's.
Knowing my lines, learning my lines.
No, just her presence as a whole, her as a human, and the amount of love that she poured into the show when you didn't have to, and she really did. She came in with such care and thoughtfulness. And
can you imagine if I was like, y'all are lucky I'm here?
We would have been like, we are. Yeah. It's true. We are very lucky.
No, I was the lucky one.
No.
So lovely. And I had one more question for you, Bailee. So aside from the heaviness of this season, we do get to see a softer side of Imogen through any kind of moment with Estelle, but also with her new love interest.
Mhm.
How important was that for you? Yeah. How important was that for you, for viewers to be able to see that other side of Imogen that's not so heavy and a little bit more relaxed?
I will say it was actually like a breath of relief for myself, even as an actor. I was so like excited for Imogen to have that chance. I feel like last season, I used to describe Imogen last season as like the, the old fashioned Jiffy Pop, the popcorn on the stove, and it like pops, and then the whole thing opens up. And
were you even alive when that actually existed? When we would
I made popcorn.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, it was like a special treat. We were like, look, we found the Jiffy Pop.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
But that was like my like analogy for Imogen the first season. I was like, she's constantly on the verge of like over popping and freaking out. And it's so nice to see her actively search for these moments of joy. And Johnny, I think, is such a wonderful person to do that for. I think she's used to taking care of herself, trying her best to take care of her people, and to have someone who is so thoughtfully presently there and who she's also just like smitten by. I think it's such a fun, new, normal feeling. And it was like just nice to see Imogen smile with all of her teeth and be like, Johnny. It was fun. It was also like my first proper, I feel like romance that I've had as like an actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I've always have like, like a cute little crush and then maybe they get together, but I've never had something that like is a slow burn.
Isn't that just a relief?
Yeah, it was nice to like get it
sweet.
Yeah, and it happened. Now it's like,
and it doesn't help that, he's nice to look at too.
Right. Yes. Antonio's a wonderful.
Yes.
We are not just talking about Antonio's appearance.
No, we can objectify him.
Right. Female
gaze. Talented, very talented actor.
Very
yes.
talented.
And singer. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It was so great talking to you. I love your energy. I wish I could talk to you longer.
Oh, us too.
Yeah.
That was what we'd say.
Yeah. It's probably best
probably good to end.
Stop.
Conversation.
You're beautiful. You're
so kind.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, have a good one. I hope the rest goes well. Everyone's lovely.
It's so great to meet you both. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you. So, Zaria, last season, Farron had to navigate spaces where she was not welcome, especially on the basis of race. But with this season, she's taking up some spaces that are more male dominated. So I wanted to know, how do you think these experiences allow her to develop a sense of self, but also become more confident in taking up space where she's not necessarily comfortable?
Great question. I think that, when you first meet Farron, you go, oh, she has her stuff together. I don't know what I could say in here, but she has her stuff together, And then the season goes on and you go, oh, she has some stuff bubbling down in the surface. And so there was a lot of figuring out for me as an actor. I had to figure out how to play someone that didn't know themselves. And that was new for me, especially new for Farron, because one of her pillars for me felt like, oh, this is a young woman that had to know who she was so that she could survive ballet, so that she could survive being in a single parent home, so that she could survive the microaggressions. And so I do believe that she carries parts of that with her in the second season. But you're right, a lot of it is like the dissolution of who she thought she was, which was, I am a dancer. I am going to do this. This is how I will live my life, which that is a hard journey for anyone, especially a high school student. So I think she navigates that by trying out different things, which I really honor that about her. She's trying out swimming. She's trying out bodybuilding. She's trying, she's trying out lifeguarding, and she's trying to figure out who she is in that way. So yeah, it was a very interesting ride trying to play a character that didn't quite know who they were.
It's very cool seeing her in that kind of leadership role. I thought that was super cool. And
I agree. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer one of the pivotal points of your question, which is she's occupying these misogynistic spaces and she pushes back. And yeah, that's also something that I really enjoy about her, is that no matter where she is, she's going to do exactly that. She's going to take up space. She's going to say, I deserve to be here. And that's something I learned from her is to be okay with being uncomfortable to people. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yes. And Mallory, I was going to say that Kelly is also taking on some new changes this season. And I think it's so interesting how she has kind of taken this complete 180 about like her passions. And I really thought it was interesting how she started to turn to religion to kind of cope with a lot of the loss that she's experienced. What was your reaction when reading the script and kind of seeing how she's kind of pivoting into this new avenue?
Laughter initially. I think it's such a great and clever juxtaposition that Roberto and Lindsay have done, that we see the girls going to therapy and talking about what they went through, and then we cut to Farron visiting Kelly, and she's just got, you know, the smile plastered on, and she says, "Oh, I've never been better." And so I think it's really clever and totally in character for Kelly, that she is just going to put on this brave face, and she is going to dive into something different, and she's really relishing that sense of community aspect of religion. And I think there's a part of her too that likes the fact that nobody knows who Karen is. No one knows about her dad. She kind of has this clean slate. And then I loved my costumes.
Yeah, those were cute. I like them.
They really are. They really the preppy look is really cute.
Yeah.
We're both rocking it today.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say.
Inspired.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Yeah. And Zaria, I also am watching this show from a perspective as a former ballerina. So I think it's really great. Yeah. For 12 years, it was really crazy. But I think it's really amazing how Farron makes a point to say that she realized that the ballet environment was very toxic for her and that she needed to find solace in like other areas. And as we saw in this season, like she's taking on these kind of different roles where, you know, like that strength training and things like that. What did it mean to you to see her kind of finding her way? And, you know, like, was it gratifying for you to see her kind of step away and do what's right for her?
Oh, so gratifying. And congratulations. That's really amazing. It's such a sport. And I take my hat off to dancers. It's like really a beautiful thing. It's like the perfect amalgamation of sport and art, and kudos to you. But to answer your question, yeah, it was gratifying to me. I think, you know, it's funny because I think back to knowing at such a young age that I wanted to be an entertainer. And there is hardly ever a time where I feel confused about that. And if it is, it's probably for 0.1 second, and it's just me entertaining it. So it was gratifying to, you know, step into Farron's shoes and figure out the devastation that she might feel of trying to find her place in the world. And I used to say last season, you know, she came into it wanting to fit into dance, and then she realized that actually the world had to fit to her and not the other way around. And now I feel like in season 2, she's traveling to a different world. She's not even on the same planet, which is nice. I think it makes you stronger to pull out different strengths and to practice different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your conversation. And I love your preppy look. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, how are you all today?
Hi, Alyssa. Really good.
Good to meet you all. So, Malia, this season brings about a lot of conversations about aging relatives, which I thought was really interesting as Mouse has her Lola staying with her for the summer. So I wanted to know, like, what was it like portraying that kind of dilemma of seeing Lola decline? And, you know, it's a very real experience that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. So, like, did you draw from any personal experiences? And, like, what was that like, kind of seeing that happen to your character?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, Lola represents like a huge shift in Mouse's life because, you know, in episode 1, you see her mom's go and Lola has this like jovialness about her, and she's like winking at her and being like, everything's gonna be fine with me. And so there's like this really cute like bond there, and I think this freedom that Lola like allows for Mouse, but Of course, like you said, her health does start to deteriorate. And I do think it's easier for Mouse to identify that as something else or something more, how do you say, like ghostly than coming to terms with the fact that, of course, one of her favorite people and her biggest champions is maybe, you know, in a health decline. And of course, I have personal experience with that. I call my Lola, I call her Nanay, which is like the other way of saying grandma in Tagalog. And yeah, when I was 17, which is close to where Mouse is, she was like diagnosed with cancer, and like it shifted a lot in my life. And she lived with us, and you know, and now she's fine and she's here and she's kicking because she's a survivor and she's badass. But it's definitely a storyline I could deeply relate to on a lot of levels, and it was, you know, healing in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad she's okay.
Oh my God. Nanai's kicking. She's a badass. I don't know if she'd appreciate that I call her that, but she's amazing.
Oh, that's great. And Jordan, I think it's so awesome that Ash is always there for Mouse and is very supportive of her interests, even though like the spooky spaghetti thing, like that was craziness. I think he brings out the best in Mouse, but also like holds her accountable for things like that. And, you know, like reminds her like, hey, like we're supposed to be in a relationship, things like that. Talk to me about what that experience was for you to portray that.
It was really interesting because, you know, as they are starting to get to know each other in season 1, of course, like in that kind of like honeymoon phase, especially in high school, like you kind of just like, and just allow it to happen. And then as they get more serious and as, you know, they fall deeper in love, I think one of the greatest things that you can do for someone that you love is hold them accountable. And I do think that Ash is wise beyond his years, and I think he deeply cares about her and wants the best for her, but also understands that she is an incredible girl who can handle her own, and she's got a group of badass women with her that like he can take a step back and go along this crazy goose hunt of spaghetti from maybe a more level-headed, grounded thing, but also understand that people deal with trauma in different ways. And if that is the way that she handles with her trauma to heal and grow, then he has to support that if he wants to stick around. So
yeah. So Maya, I love seeing Noah. Like she goes through a lot this season, and just so many different things. But like I really honed in on the fact that Sean's mother was just very obvious about the fact that she does not like Noah at all.
Oh yeah, there's no room for interpretation. Yeah. She's very straightforward about that. Hates me.
To her. And I also found it interesting how a piece of Noah's past has come up, and you can tell it's a part of her that she has been trying to suppress. So I wanted to know, what did you like about this development of your character, and how do you think it adds depth to the fact that like her mom's away and she's really having to navigate things on her own? Like, what do you think that adds to your character?
My goodness. I think with all of her characters, but with Noah, there's always been endless complexity and so many layers to her that I think are starting to come to the surface simply because she's stopped and kind of gathered herself a little bit after everything that went on in season 1. And I think in that pause, she's kind of realized how much of herself she's kind of doing out of habit. And maybe that comfort that comes in with habit is a certain relationship, or is perpetuating things that maybe aren't making her happy. And I think Jen represents such a big shift in her whole persona, because she kind of is forced to face all of these things that she keeps suppressing, because it's easier to just go wherever she thinks is right and whatever she thinks her mom will approve of, or whatever she believes will get her to steady ground the fastest. And maybe that's not what makes her happy. So I definitely think this season there's so much more room for her to explore who she is and making mistakes along the way. Both Sean and Jen are definitely patient with her, I would say. because she's just trying her best. I think there's so much trauma that these girls have endured that we have to give them the benefit of the doubt whenever they make mistakes. We need to give them grace. But definitely, this season, there's so much to explore with Noah. It was very fun to play with.
Yeah, and I had so much fun watching you all, and I've really been enjoying this as someone who was a big fan last season. So thank you so much for your time today. I really
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's so wonderful to meet all of you.
Likewise.
To meet
Ditto.
you.
So my first question is for Sharon. So I really loved the support that Sydney gives Imogen this season, regarding her experiences, having to give up her baby and kind of experiencing so much without her mom. And she really becomes a mother figure for her. What did it mean for you to see your character take on so many challenges between her own daughter and Imogen and be there to support them as kind of one of the only available parents around during this crazy?
Right. I love it. I love being up for the task. And it is a really sweet and beautiful thing. I think also as an African-American female, being kind of at the center and mother henning and really taking care of someone that's gone through something traumatic in every way from, the obvious, running from A and surviving A and then, losing her mother. It's actually this really sort of poignant, touching, beautiful storyline, underneath everything else. So I'm happy to play her. And I think Roberto and Lindsay do a wonderful job of writing her as really that place, that person that is there to center them and, makes them feel like they can turn to her at any point. And it's nice. It's lovely playing her.
That's lovely. I think that's so great. And I feel like when I watch the show, I kind of come into it with a different perspective because I actually live in Pennsylvania and I love telling people I actually attended the same high school that Sarah Shepard had attended.
Wow.
Very few people care about information like that, but I feel like this is the perfect environment for that.
Oh my, for sure.
Very
Yes,
cool.
she actually came back to the school a couple years ago and spoke to the students. Of course, I had already graduated, but it's okay. But yeah, I have a love for the show. And I think just as a Pennsylvania resident, there are these little nuggets of this season where I was like, I took the Keystone exams and I did not.
Oh my God. That was a huge thing for us this season. Yes.
I would have been in summer school too. So just cool things like that where only certain people would know. So I really wanted to know for both Roberto and Lindsay, what was the writing process like for this season and how important was it for you to, still be true to the setting of the show, despite the fact that it's fictional, but, those little details like that are really important to people like me who can relate. So tell me a little bit about that.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
No, even, season 1, we were talking about what our setting would be and creating a setting because we knew we loved the original Pretty Little Liars so much. And we were as big of fans as their fandom is. And so we knew we couldn't set the show in Rosewood. That was done so well and so perfectly and couldn't be touched. So we were but we wanted to stay in that Pennsylvania idea town. And it was very important to us. We love Rust Belt towns. We love small towns. I'm from a small southern town, less Rust Belt, but definitely it's a factory, factory towns. I know Roberto, I think same for you. So it was really important to us in developing the show and in developing the town, choosing a town with different socioeconomic statuses and backgrounds, choosing a mill town, a blue collar town, making that real. And we loved the aesthetic of kind of smaller. We actually shoot in upstate New York, not Pennsylvania, but we love Pennsylvania, and we found such towns that they capture the spirit of those towns, and so we think the aesthetic of that is so amazing, and it does add an authenticity and it makes it so realistic. It's very important to us for people to see themselves in our show. And you saying you see yourself in this show and you lived in this type of town and you went to this type of school is so cool, and
that is why we wanted to focus it on a small town like Millwood.
Yeah, and just adding to that, there's something so relatable and universal and real about summer school. Like we jokingly say it's like jury duty for teenagers. Like if you go to summer school, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in summer school. But it's so funny you say that about the Keystone exam, because I think one of our writers pitched that as a specific thing to Pennsylvania schools. And summer school and having flunked and having to pass the Keystone exam became a big thing. And I vividly remember, like, when we were like breaking episode 7 or 8, we were like, what the fuck is the Keystone exam? Like, what exactly are you getting tested on? That was a real thing. And anytime, I think when you're telling a horror story or there are heightened elements, anything that grounds anything in that reality is so cool. So that shout out to Keystone exams. That's great.
I'm glad you passed them.
Yeah.
Barely. Those tests are so hard for no reason. And I still don't know what's so important about those. But Sharon, I had one more question for you. I keep thinking back to all of Sydney's experiences last season. Those little flashbacks are really important. How do you think her experiences really allow her to be more equipped to handle it? Because even watching it, I'm just like, she seems so like, she accepts so much of the problems so easily. And she's probably just thinking like, oh, I went through this too. Like, talk to me a little bit about how that kind of brings that authenticity to your character.
I think it's fair to say that Sydney really had like quite the conscience, more so than other characters. And I think Sydney is really all about accountability and also not being repeat offender type person, right? So just kind of knowing where her mistakes lie and trying to do her best to make sure that her own daughter doesn't sort of, repeat some of the things. And so I think it's really important for Sydney to be a good mother, to really be someone not only that's there to discipline and, set the rules, but also have this sense that what really matters to her is that they can turn to her. And so I think she works really hard to, although she gets serious and she's got a temper and she will put people in their place. It's really important to her that the girls feel that they can tell her anything. And so, and that's pretty, I think if you're a good person and, parenting is not easy. And so you just sort of incorporate real life into that. It makes sense that, her intentions are pure and that's authentic, I think. Yeah.
I think so too. And thank you so much all for such a great conversation. I had so much fun talking to you.
Us too.
Definitely. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.